about this. So I am a psychiatrist and also I'm a practitioner of Sanatana Dharma. I actually founded this Soham Vidya, through which I kind of use the opportunity to incorporate spirituality into holistic well-being. So when I say spirituality, I define it through the lens of the Sanatana Dharma particularly, and there are reasons, and I can kind of, through my various presentations that I have done in the past, I have made a case why that is the case. Okay, so let's begin with the presentation, and then we'll go from there, right? Just a minute. Okay, right. So our perspective generally through Soham Vidya is that we want to be objective in appraising the scope of the subject. We believe that learning can happen from any direction. That is the Rigveda saying, which is that Ano Bhadrakritavo Yanta Vishwataha. Let the truth come from any direction. Let the knowledge come from any direction. But it has to be applied locally in a relevant fashion. It should be locally relevant rather than kind of bringing it or transplanting it artificially. And we want to be very decisive and clear in conveying our messages. And it is our view that global viewpoint is not thought from Western concept alone. It is not just Eastern concept alone either. It should be truly global. And in fact, I value the native wisdom a lot. And a lot of my presentations actually kind of makes a comment on native wisdom wherever it is from across the world. And a lot of times, native wisdom is not necessarily always kind of documented, and that is another challenge that we have, and particularly with the modern ways of our life, a lot possibly the oral traditions are often lost very easily, and we need to make sure that we get those documented before they become extinguished. The layout for this presentation is going to be fourfold. So the first part would be about modern methods of research, and the second would be defining what truth is actually, and who are keen to research the truth, what are the hindrances to research truth, and then we'll look at the ancient Indian methods of research, and we'll also look at what are the characteristics of a society which is driven by research and development. And I will ask you a question towards the end as well. So without trying to bore you too much, I don't want to spend too much time on this technicality, but it is important that we understand there is a method in how we actually do research nowadays. And all the students that have gone through the schooling system, our education system in the modern times, would be trained to think logically and also to appraise facts. And it is an important exercise so that we build a better society and advance scientifically. So there is a hierarchy which actually we do see in medical model particularly, and it is applicable in other fields of science as well. And which is that the most valid or kind of respected research model is the systematic review, is the one at the top altogether. So the quality of evidence actually increases as we go up this pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid is nothing but expert opinion or editorials or anecdotal evidence. So it is an individual, a single person's kind of expression based on their authority. So naturally, it has found its place in the pyramid because it is the authority figure who is actually talking about this, and it's not just a random person. So they're respected in that field. Otherwise, it wouldn't be coming into the pyramid at all. And then you have the other kinds of studies as we go along. There are ways to kind of I think I missed one slide here, but never mind. So there are for instance things like, for instance, randomization power of the study, biases. There are lots of efforts taken in put in place to make sure that it is rigorous and robust in how research is conducted. So that is what we are talking about. So if we are considering this to be a gold standard against which methods, ancient research methods of India would need to match, this is what we are facing. It's like the Usain Bolt. So he is the gold standard of a sprint, right? So if anybody has to match, if anybody wants to be called as one of the best sprinters in the world, they have to really kind of match up to Usain Bolt. So this is the gold standard that we are referring to. And our challenge for today is, do we actually kind of think that the ancient methods of research would stand any chance at all of meeting these modern world standards? All right. So, but before that, I would like to kind of look at how do we even define truth. And unless we do that, we won't be able to kind of make headway. I can tell you this much, that ancient India defined truth differently. And what we define as truth through scientific model would obviously be different. So what's the difference? So we can basically say there is a difference of objective truth or a fact and a subjective truth. I mean, I can say reality is the word that can go with it, but I didn't want to use that word there yet. But I'm just going to, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to use fact versus truth. Now, fact is something which has to meet the eye. It has to make sense through our senses and mind. And only then it is considered to be a truth. Otherwise, it is not. It is therefore not validated. So both approaches, when somebody wants to kind of explore truth subjectively. So what is subjective truth, for instance? We will take the example of a person who is meditating, or a person who is actually kind of working on mind sciences, field of mind sciences. It is then about that individual to actually kind of make a case, or actually present a robust evidence, if as much as is possible, because there is no way that they can find a measure. For instance, they can't bring a thermometer, for instance, to test what is mind is going to say, or a blood test for that matter. Okay, we'll find a little bit of it a little later on, but both are explorative and research oriented, and that's as much as we can say. Now, fact requires measurable validation. It has to be measured, otherwise it is out of the window. And it is an outward exploration, which meets the senses only. Otherwise, it does not pass the test of objective science. Whereas a subjective science, let's call it, as I said, truth. It is a larger concept. It can actually include the outward exploration too, but a lot of times it is an inward exploration because it is a subjective matter. For instance, I'm going to ask Rajalakshmi ji or Vinay or whoever is here, or Ramesh, that what's going on in your mind, and you can say whatever you wish to say. There is no way for me to kind of objectively assess whether you are saying the right things or what you wanted to say. Are you saying exactly what you had in your mind? The output, is it the same as what you thought? There is absolutely no way I can comment on that or validate it. It is your personal experience entirely, but that is your truth. Okay, and you amplify it a little more going into meditation, or that of a drashta or a rishi, for instance, who has the absolute ability to kind of transcend this laukika space to an alaukika space, a cosmic space, for instance, and they are actually bringing in a lot of information and they are handing it over to the disciples over there. Okay, so this is where we are coming to in terms of understanding the difference between these two. And therefore, even the best rishis wouldn't be able to provide any objective evidence whatsoever. Whatever they say may not be measurable at all, because it does not meet the senses. So therefore, it is beyond grasp of senses, as I say in the second part here, and that truth is beyond measurable validation. The problems, as I said here, there are several drawbacks of accountability. How do we know that person is giving you the truth, or are they misleading you? Accuracy, even though they may have experienced it well, precisely, by the time it is put in words, it may not actually translate properly. These are all very relevant because religions have been formed in modern world based on these. Okay, and to say that that is the truth, whereas accuracy can easily be questioned and accountability can be questioned, consistency can be questioned, replicability. How is it possible to replicate what the rishi had, or for instance a prophet or somebody has experienced? There is no way that that can be replicated easily. So therefore there are possibilities of biases. It can be called a myth, or it can become easily a fantasy. Are we okay so far?
Yep.
Yes, yes,
Can I go ahead?
yes.
Sure, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So yes, so now let's try, and I'll give you this exercise. What is truth? I want you all to help me with telling me what you think is truth.
Tangible, measurable,
Tangible, measurable,
replicatable.
replicable, okay. Yeah. Anything else?
I think beyond time, beyond place.
All right, beyond time and beyond place. So it should be beyond, yeah. So basically, beyond time, would it mean that it should be applicable to all ages, past, present, and future?
Right.
Beyond place,
Unchanging.
unchanging. Yes, beyond place. Would it then mean it should be it should be the same, whether it is in America or India or Mars or wherever?
Yeah.
And it should be unchanging is what we are hearing. Okay, perfect. Anything else? Anybody else wants to say?
Absolute.
Absolute?
Absolute.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so we heard what can be a fact, as in it should be measurable. Now the measurable part is one thing, replicable is also the other part we have already looked at. If we understand truth from a cosmic point of view, this is how it is. So it's something which never changes, or in Sanskrit it's going to be called avyaya, and it is the same for you and me. Okay, it should not be different at all from what I see and what you see. It should be everlasting and constant. Constant, everlasting obviously is according to whether it is does it have a timeline, time scale, time bound? It is not. Constant means irrespective of the era that it is in, it is the same. So therefore unaffected by time and place, as we already heard. It should also be free from emotions. It can't be altered. So when you say free from emotions, it is what is the Sanskrit word? I'm forgetting right now. But yeah, so then it can't be altered, it can't be manipulated or adulterated. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we hear the sloka, Nainam chindanti shastrani, Nainam dahati pavakaha, Nainam kledayantyapaha, Nashoshayati marutaha. So it is something which cannot be actually kind of flushed away with water, burnt away, or it can't be basically adulterated, or it can be manipulated or even altered. It should be the same. Cannot be destroyed. Akshara, therefore, it is the word used is akshara. Akshara is destructible, akshara is indestructible. And it stays the same whether we are in a state of sleep or awakening. And well, it can be called reality, but this is from a cosmic point of view. Now, the problem is that, as we already kind of looked at it, this is not going to be validated. This is not going to be measurable. The reason for this is the entire model of cosmic truth is based on that which cannot be comprehended by senses or mind. It is beyond the grasp of senses or mind. Now, you see the vast difference in how truth from a scientific point of view is understood, whereas the truth from a cosmic point of view is understood. Now, we therefore cannot have the same research methodology for both of them. So when truth is something which can only be validated or has to be validated by senses, this entire exercise comes to a zero. Because when I have something which meets my senses, for instance, there is this bottle here, for instance, and this bottle is true because I see it and you see it, right? But is this going to be everlasting? Is it going to be unaffected or not altered and manipulated and so on? Cannot be destroyed? No. So interestingly, this truth fails the test of the cosmic truth concept. Whereas the cosmic truth concept miserably fails the test of the materialistic truth or the scientific truth model. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So how then can we have the same research methodology? Now, it's obviously very easy that we appreciate and we want to kind of continue to be fact-based in this modern world, because that is possibly the safest way to live now, because it is then free from diabolical kind of dogma or superstition or for that matter easily kind of manipulating one's mind or brainwashing and such kind of things, right? So there is absolutely, it's not to say that we have no role at all in terms of for the scientific way of appraising truth, but we have to appreciate the model of research has to be very different for both of them. All right. So the one of the points I mentioned was, therefore, who is keen in researching truth? Now, scientists are very keen on researching truth, and they're actually researching fact. Lawyers and judges or investigating agencies, they are very interested in fact. Now, spiritual seekers are interested in research as well, because that is what exactly it is. It is wanting to know the truth. But here we are talking about the cosmic truth that they are researching. So these are all the people who are interested in researching truth. Religion, which is institutionalized, not evolving, is therefore not research orientated. I hope I am able to make a distinction here. So spiritual seeking is very different to an institutionalized religious model. An institutionalized religious model basically says, we found the truth, this is what you have to live with. Okay, and that doesn't give any scope for research at all. Hence, the followers are not researchers per se, unless they free themselves from those impositions. Now, this is an important part. I want to just wait for a while so that I can hear from others what you'll have to say. Anybody wishes to make any comments there? Is the distinction clear there? Or is it an artificial one? I'll put the slide again in case. Anybody wishes to make any comments? So the silence can mean two things. One, you accept what was said. Second, it didn't make sense. So I want to know which of these two is the cause for the silence.
It's making sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Right. All right. So, and yeah, so that's, and mind you, we have to be kind of very clear that we will not fall prey to non-research kind of approach to life. And we can give examples for that. I mean, I also believe that, let's call it, once truth is known, I think we need to learn to live with it. It's not to say that we have to be persistently be a seeker even after finding the truth. So that's a different topic altogether. That's for a separate time. Okay. So my question here is, who would Charvakas have chosen? I should have actually said who Charvaka was earlier, or who are Charvakas. Does anybody know who the Charvakas were in the ancient times?
It was they were a group of people who believed in living life on a day-to-day basis, have lots of enjoyment, lots of fun while everything was available.
Yeah.
Who knows what happens after death? So
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. But was there a method to how they arrived at it? We'll look at it, or was it just simply people coming together and, coming up with this idea? So we'll look at it, whether was there a method to how they arrived at it, or was it just by chance that they randomly kind of picked that ideology for themselves? But if Charvakas were to be around now, they would be happy to side the spiritual seekers rather than followers of religions, because they just did not agree at all to the concept of God whatsoever. Okay, we'll look at it, I think perhaps in the next slide itself. So there are hindrances. I thought I updated this slide, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So the hindrances are religious dogma, and the second would be rigidity of ideologies. And it could be beyond religion as well. It's not necessarily a religious dogma which stops kind of research. It could be ideological kind of rigidity from any other ways of thinking. There could also be fear of expression, depending on what that subject matter is, for instance. Or it could be intolerance, plain intolerance towards others' understanding of the whole idea of truth. There could be other hindrances too. But I think we can just move to the next slide. It's here. Okay, I wonder why that was the case. I didn't remove the older slide, I guess. So now we come to the brilliant Charvakas. We'll see why they were brilliant. And you can say Charvaka concept was fact-based. You know what Charvakas have said? Tatha cha tanmatam. Etavaneva lokoyam yavan indriya gocharaha. Gocharaha, it should be gocharaha. Bhadre vrukapadam pashya yad vadanti bahushrutaha. What it basically means is, etavan eva lokaha ayam. This only is the world. Yavan indriya gocharaha. As much as is comprehended by the senses. Bhadre, oh my dear. So he gives an example. It's a very interesting example, which is that Vrukapadam Pashya. So there is a story there. So he says, look, I'm going to prove to you how foolish people can be and how dogma starts, or how superstition starts. So he goes at dark out of the village, outside the village, and in a plain area of sand, he actually makes impressions of a wolf, the foot impressions of a wolf. And he comes back home and he says to his friend or the wife, that, look, by morning, I'll bet you that the entire village will be talking about a wolf having attacked or wolf going to attack the village. And that's exactly what happens. People go, somebody sees the footprints and they say, oh my goodness, there was a wolf. Let me go and alert the villagers. Then somebody then makes the story up further saying, oh, apparently a wolf has already attacked the village and killed a couple of people. And it goes on like that. Now, this is the absolutely important way to kind of understand how, if it is not fact-based, it is so easy to kind of be fooled into dogma and superstition. And if we are not careful with how information is received by us and how we process it. So were Charvakas wrong? Absolutely not. Charvakas definitely require respect for the way they have actually kind of perhaps checked dogma creeping into society. And that's the brilliance of the democratic way of living the ancients had at their disposal. They have not shooed away different schools of thought. Everything existed. Yes, there will be differences and they would debate. Perhaps there will be ferocious debates, but not to the extent of extinguishing the entire kind of the human group who would have been holding these ideas. No, that was never the case. So they said basically all sources therefore can be flawed apart from your own first-hand information, and it's only possible through senses, your own senses. Hence, Charvaka Siddhanta rejected everything which was beyond direct sensory perception. All right. So, and do we have evidence of it elsewhere? In Ramayana, in Ayodhya Kanda, we have one of the shlokas here which says, Sanasti paramithyeva kuru buddhim mahamate pratyaksham yat tadatishta paroksham prushtataha kuru. So the sahanasti param ityeva, there is thinking about param, there's something beyond this world that exists. Please don't go to the extent of thinking in those lines because it doesn't exist. Okay, you are in need of putting in the effort in this human life. You need to see pratyaksham yat atishta. Whatever is observable, you sit with it. Paroksham prushtataha kuru. What you cannot sense through your senses, you can't perceive. Leave that aside. Leave that behind you. Is what was said too. So we have definitely a strong tradition, or at least an ideological kind of viewpoint of very much fact-based kind of model of truth inquiry. Any questions or comments so far on that before we go beyond? All right. So what are the limitations of fact-based inquiries though? Now look at this lake, for instance. It's a frozen lake. Now imagine I have never seen a frozen lake. I have never seen it. I only know land. I know that hard surface. And I come to this land. And I think it is land. And I walk on it. And I accidentally crack that layer. And all I notice is my leg going in to water. And then I realize, oh, actually it is water. I thought it was a land. It was it was a layer of land. Now, fact, as in my senses told me that was hard layer of land. The senses didn't know that actually it was the water underneath that. So this is one of the challenges of fact-based inquiries, that all that meets the eyes is not entirely the truth. So there are limitations there. And similarly, we already discussed limitations of subjective kind of ways of appraising truth, because it can easily lead to dogma and such. All right, so are we ready to explore what those ancient Indian methods were? Don't expect too much on this, but I'm sure there is enough for us to be excited. All right, so there is the concept of pramana, prameya, prama. So these are the words used. Prama is the prameya is actually the one which we want to decipher or understand. Pramana is the tool which we use to understand the truth. And there are, depending on the philosophical, the darshana, we talk about darshanas, there are several darshanas. We have Astika darshana and the Nastika darshanas. Astika darshanas are the ones which actually, loosely you can say that they are inspired by Vedas and they are modeled around it. Nastika darshanas are the ones which do not credit Vedas much. They actually go beyond Vedas, or in fact, you can say they discredit Vedas. Okay. What are the Astika darshanas? You have Sankhya Yoga, Sankhya, you have Nyaya, Vaiseshika, Mimamsa. And in the Mimamsas, we have Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. In the Nastika traditions, you have the Charvaka or the Lokayata, and you have the Jaina and the Bauddha. Some actually like to believe that Jaina and Bauddha can actually come under the Astika itself, but that's a different school. But loosely, this is what is accepted. There is a reason why this was mentioned. Darshanas actually rely on these pramanas. These are the 4 pramanas, and there are 2 other pramanas which Mimamsikas, rishis actually would be interested in. But by and large, these are the 4 tools of inquiry. All right. So the easiest one we can say is that Pratyaksha Pramana, which is nothing but the objective inquiry, my senses telling me that that is seen, that is heard, that is smelled, that is tasted, and therefore it exists. It's as clear as that. And that is Pratyaksha Pramana. It is data gathered by the senses. All the darshanas, irrespective of whether it's Astika or Nastika, would have Pratyaksha in them incorporated. Where they all differ is about the remaining 3. So one can easily say Charvaka, for instance, Charvaka Siddhanta has only Pratyaksha. It does not pay any attention. It disregards the other pramanas. What are those? We have Anumana, which is actually a conclusion based on available data. How does it come about? So this is where we need to spend a little time. For instance, I am seeing smoke on a hill and I don't see any fire there. So I've seen the smoke. The immediate thought that came to my mind is there is a fire. Now the rishis, the way they conceptualize Anumana is that I have known fire before because I have seen it in the kitchen. It's a very simplified way of putting it. I have seen fire in the kitchen where that fire was actually emitting smoke. Therefore, if there is a smoke, there should be fire, or the cause of the fire. The cause is the fire, effect is the smoke. So there is the effect there, which is smoke, and therefore there is a cause there, which is the fire. It goes like that. There are a few other caveats to it, but that's anumana for you. Okay. There is upamana, which is like, for instance, I'm comparing one with the other. So the one I'm comparing with is very well known and accepted by all. It is like a gold standard. And the one I'm comparing something new is, it has to have some features similar to what I'm comparing with. Example, there is a hill, and I want to tell somebody who has not seen a hill before, but has seen a mountain. Imagine. I'm making it very simplistic here, but just imagine. So he's never known what a hill is, but he knows what a mountain is. And I'm describing that, hill is nothing but, you've seen that Himalaya mountain there, the Mount Kailasha. Oh yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's like a conical shaped, and it is it is made of stone, and it may have trees and grass. Yeah, now I know. That's exactly what a hill is like. It's not the same, it is similar. And then it understands, oh, that's the comparison. So that is upamana. And then you have shabda. Now go back to the modern world research, and at the bottom of that you have what is called as the expert opinion, and that is authority. The authority is actually kind of telling you that is shabda or apta vakya. So shabda is one what basically an enlightened seer, one who is an authority, has been an authority on it, is telling you that. Now there are a few different ways to appreciate the shabda beyond just the words of the seers. If it is somebody else who is actually valuing the whole idea of truth, and that they have done methodical assessment of it, and therefore they can therefore be relied upon, and they may not necessarily be a rishi, but a normal person, a common person, but we appreciate them for what they have done. That is also part of shabda. Is it clear so far? Are we okay so far?
Yes.
Okay, so nothing beyond that what I have said. So objective research evidence is very much based on pratyaksha, and anumana, shabda are the ones we definitely would rely a lot on subjective research. Let's look at some examples here. How many dice do we have? Don't look at the reflections. Even if you look at the reflections, it doesn't matter to me, but how many dice do we have?
Six.
6. Does anybody give any other answer, or is it 6? Vamshi also says 6. Does anybody else have any different answer? No, right? We all would agree that it is 6. No matter how many millions in this world come and see this, they will agree on it. That's the best part of pratyaksha pramana. It is robust. You cannot be kind of wrong. All right. Now, can you see the wind? Or if I ask the question, is there wind?
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Anybody
you
else?
can infer there's wind.
Yes,
by
there is a
seeing the
wind because we
movement.
feel that.
You infer that there is wind. How? How did you infer it?
There is a feel. When there is a wind, our senses will feel that one.
No, but look at the just looking at the video. How do
There's
you?
a movement of the field.
Yes.
Field is moving the
So-
direction.
So the grass is moving, and therefore I know that there is wind. So what pramana is this? The ones I have shown earlier. What
Anumana.
pramana is this?
Anumana.
Anumana. Yes, it is Anumana Pramana. Okay. Now, I'm sure we all agree with it. There is not much of debate, but it takes time to come to it. And theoretically, there is a possibility that it may not be as accurate as the Pratyaksha Pramana. Now, these things get a little bit tricky now. Now, where is mind located? And I asked this in our Sanatana Dharma webinar as well. See, from a medical model, I can't scan to find mind. I can scan to find brain, but I can't find mind. Mind is understood to be a neural network. That's it, but I can't find it. So how do I know I have a mind then? I can't even, locate it through investigation, just like how I can locate a heart or a muscle. I can't locate it. So we know there is mind because we say we think, and we all think, therefore there is mind. So you can say that is also Anumana. But the problem gets quite bad when it comes to how do I even make a claim that there is Atma. And I can't make a claim that there is Atma because unlike the mind, none of us are going to easily agree that there is Atma through this kind of methodology. Yes, Rajalakshmi.
Sir, is mind really in brain or somewhere?
We don't know. We don't know, do we? So, but the medical model is understood to be a neural network. Whereas the Panchakosha system would say that Manomaya is, and the mind is elsewhere.
That's right.
Now, interestingly, I was reading through Shaddarshana Samuchaya of Haribhadra, which I make a mention in this as well. In Jainism, apparently, the Atman is thought to be something which pervades the entire body. So there are different concepts how we interpret these things, but the point is it makes it extremely difficult when somebody wants to kind of do any research, particularly on the spiritual side of it. So interestingly, I actually again these are some of the slides which I'm borrowing from my own kind of presentation from my Sanatana Dharma webinars. So in the modern world, we have definitely subjective based research. For instance, past life regression therapy, which Dr. Brian Weiss and Michael Newton and all, and several others have been conducting for many years now. And they have, this is a model of research where a person is interviewed when they are in their subconscious state, and the information is collated. And if you see how a lot of them actually describe, there seems to be consistencies. So when more the number of people who describe it, let's draw parallels with the more the number of rishis that they describe the same, particularly from different time zones, different eras and different geographical areas and different cultural backgrounds. If they all are actually describing the same thing, the likelihood that they are describing the truth goes higher. But mind you, it is never going to be validated and it can't pass the test of objective evidence. But that's not the point here. The point is we go back to how research methodology has to be different for understanding truth from a cosmic truth model versus a fact-based model. It can't be the same methodology for both. Okay. Same goes with near-death experiences with Dr. Raymond Moody, who was a psychiatrist too. And he interviewed those who have been resuscitated and came back to life, and they were recalling the few minutes of out-of-body experience. That is subjective again, but he had collated a lot of information from various people, and further researchers have also been doing the same kind of research. And we have reincarnation research by Dr. Ian Stevenson, another psychiatrist, and his methodology can be as robust as it can be on subjective research model, because he had interviewed a lot of children who actually made recalled their past lives and how they were still kind of in touch with the past life memory, and they wanted to go back to that particular place or meet their family. So he would interview them, he would follow them up at a later point of time. He would also go to interview people from that town that he actually the child had referred to, and they would cross check and come to document it all. And that was as robust as he could get, and it's a good way to kind of document all that. So I'm just putting here books for the sake of people to have an understanding. These are all Brian Weiss's books, very spiritually inclined, and you can call them In Search of Cosmic Truth. And you have books by Dr. Raymond Moody, which is Life After Life. You have Michael Newton's books, and you have 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation. And I put Bhagavad Gita there. Of course, it's written in Telugu there. But the reason I put both together is to say that how come the findings of research of these modern researchers and the findings of a rishi who had written Bhagavad Gita are the same or very similar. They actually talk about the same things like karma, they talk about punarjanma, the reincarnation, they talk about the Atman. How is it possible that they are actually talking of the same things, separated by thousands of years? So there's something there we need to think about. Okay, so let me take a pause there in case if anybody wishes to say anything, ask anything.
May I ask small questions, sir? Without
Okay. So shall I go ahead then? Right. So we come back to this question. Is it ever possible that, we looked at some concepts of ancient research methods and they are nowhere related to how the modern world does research, does it? Does it look anything similar? Does it? Well, I'm not too sure whether there is an answer there, but all right. Okay, there's a chat entry. No, says, yeah, Vamsi and Padmajaji. Okay, all right. No, there's no resemblance. So is it even our question for this presentation was, do they really stand a chance in terms of meeting standards of modern world? Interestingly, we have a little bit more for in our presentation, which is that I'll explain to you how a researcher goes about in the modern world. And I'm a researcher and I have a professor, and I'm actually taking up a new topic. And I speak to my professor and he says, go and do all the literature search, read all the books, all the journals, come back to me and we'll conceptualize a hypothesis. And then we'll think of a methodology. How do you go about with the research, data analysis thereafter, and then we will then publish it, So this is how the modern world research takes place. Do you think something like that existed in the past? Is there a possibility that something like that existed in the past? Vamshi says yes. Okay, well, let's go ahead then. Interestingly, it existed. And how do we know? We have this is an article from Bhattacharya and Loho Chowdhury, and they have actually kind of found out that there are some research stages which are very similar to the modern world. Taram, Sutaram, Tartaram, Ramyaka, Sudhamuditam. So Taram is the stage where the research problem is identified and the approval of the supervisor is obtained to understand the methodology and the research design. Then Sutaram is where the person, actually the researcher, goes and does extensive literature search. So initial reference through inference through review of existing works. And then he comes with the hypothesis. And Tartaram is when he actually collects, compiles, analyzes, and interprets the data. And Ramyaka is the presentation of that. And Sudhamititam is nothing but making sure that presentation, Ramyaka is presentation among peer groups. You know, how we do it in peer group, which is like conferences and journals. That's exactly what was happening then. Does it surprise you all? Because those who have listened to this part in my Sanatana Dharma webinar perhaps would say it doesn't surprise you, but those who are new, does it surprise you all that such a thing existed in the past?
No.
It doesn't surprise you? Okay. Well, it surprised me at least when I first saw it, and I was glad to have seen it. And it made sense. Then actually a lot of things came to, I could relate to, I could connect the dots, a lot of things. And how is that possible? I'll tell you how that's possible. What do you think are the characteristics of a society which is driven by research and development? What do you think?
Acceptance to various hypotheses that have been proposed
Yeah,
by people of different thoughts.
yeah,
Okay. Now, when I said I was not surprised, we had various, as simple as the models of Earth. Though we all knew Sanatanis believed that
Yeah.
the Earth was globe, but if you see various cultures, there have been various ancient Indian sculptures in which Earth has been depicted in many ways.
Hmm.
So they were open to debate, they were open to hypothesis.
Hmm.
So this is why I think people
Yeah.
have taken, or they
Okay.
were pretty open to the scientific approach.
So a valid point. So they would be open to different hypotheses proposed by different people. Yes. Any other characteristics of a society that would be driven by research and development? Any other characteristics? So let's see the chat box. There's some entry there. God is not ultimate.
Maybe the thirst to explore. was
Sorry?
one.
Can you be louder?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
The thirst to know more, or the thirst for knowledge, could have been the triggering factor.
Yeah.
And another thing could have been what drives a research, a problem which is present in, and a solution that you have to find. For us, at least in the present society, when we are, whatever we are researching is more to do with that. No? You have a problem, so you tend to go to a problem solving.
Yeah.
And intellectual thirst could be another factor,
Sure.
which Indians were very known to be having a lot.
Sure. Okay. So let's see what I have in my slide. So a society which is keen on research and development, they are open to discussion and debate. Do you see that in ancient India?
They are open to discussion and debate. A classic example of Adi Shankaracharya's debate with Mandana Mishra.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. And a society which is driven by research and development will be flexible in journey in pursuit of truth. It's basically saying that with new light of evidence, I'm happy to change my course. And that's the same example that you are citing. For instance, in the debating culture in the ancient times, one of the criteria was that if the debate is lost, that person will actually become the Sishya of the person who had defeated him. So how does that come about if you're not flexible? So it comes about because you're open to kind of accepting that my truth, your truth, it's not about my truth and your truth. We are in search together of the truth. So the flexibility automatically is built in. So society lets go of preconceived notions, prejudice, and superstition. Now, if a society is truly driven by research and development, I'm talking about, okay, and that is entirely possible. Open to learn from all, value others' opinions, and make civilizational progress by building society based on the building blocks of truth. Now, is it far-fetched, or is it all relatable that this is how society can actually kind of exist when it is based on research and development? What is research and development at the end of the day? Jnanam and Vijnanam, as Bhagavad Gita says. Jnanam is nothing but the knowledge, and I'm always on pursuit of knowing who I am. That is research. I'm actually always in search of who I am. I'm trying to know who I am. I know I am the Brahman, but I'm inward. My inward journey is continuing until I actually know, yes, now I am. And the development is nothing but Vijnanam. It is applying the truth. As I'm developing, as I'm learning, I'm actually applying it. I'll give you examples of how do we establish if ancient India was research oriented. See, we know it from, I'll give you all indirect inferences here. So if you look at spiritual dharmic texts like Bhagavad Gita, for instance, in one of the shlokas says, Krishna says, Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha. He says, Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha. When he says ye me matam, there itself it has to be inferred that this is my view. So when I say this is my view, it is not saying it is the only view. So there's a possibility for others to have their own views. And after you hear my view, it is for you to decide what you wish to do with it, is what it exactly means. And that's exactly what a researcher's openness is. To make sure that, to kind of make a declaration that there are other views too, there are other ways to understand truth, and this is not the only way. And that comes from a research kind of a culture. And Arjuna demonstrates what it takes to be a good student. So there was a culture there of a student and a teacher kind of a relation, and how they would do a vada. They both demonstrate the concept of vada between guru and sishya. I'll tell you what vada is. So there are three ways to kind of debate. There is vada, then there is jalpa, then vitanda. Vada is where is as described here. We don't need to worry about the other two, which are erroneous kind of debating styles. Acharya shishyayoho paksha pratipaksha parigrahat yah katabhyasa hetuhu syadasau vada udahritaha. Acharya shishyayoho, between the sishya and the teacher, paksha pratipaksha. So the both are different, they are opponents. So one is taking up the paksha, and one is the pratipaksha, the countering. The other person is countering. Yaha katha abhyasa hetuhu. This is how they would have been practicing. And this is what Vada is. Syad asau Vada udahritaha. This is an example. This is how Vada is to be conducted. And how is it done? It is solely with the interest of arriving at the truth, even though they advance strong mutual criticism of the views expressed. So they have the liberty to express themselves freely, strongly, what they think is the right view. But they both have the same aim of arriving at the truth. It is not about, I want to convince you through my debating abilities, manipulate my argument only with the purpose of winning at the expense of truth. That is not. And that, when do you have that culture? When you actually have, again, a researching kind of a method there, and that kind of an atmosphere which values it. Okay, so this shloka is from Saddarshana Samuchaya by Haribhadra Suri. We have other examples. For instance, in Mimamsa, there is a concept of Chodana. Chodana is an instruction, a Vedic instruction given how to adhere to a yajna, and it employs a method where it is algorithmic. So they introduce the concept of algorithm there, and they don't want to repeat themselves every time there's a different yajna being described. And it's a beautiful way to put it. I mean, I can't put it here in a few words. It's for somebody to kind of read it and then understand it. So there's a method to it. In fact, there is one of the Telugu Bhagavatams written by Bamera Potana. He had the audacity to say that divine can actually be either God, it could actually be time, it could be karma, it could be desire, or it could be karma. When would somebody say this? When does a person have the liberty to say this without being blasphemous? When the society is open to look at alternative viewpoints and arriving at truth. For some, the truth is God. For some, the truth is time. Only time is truth, nothing else. And this is how they were able to kind of encourage that nice kind of atmosphere. You have Arthashastra, for instance, where Kautilya for every subject gives a list of references of previous proponents. For everything he is going to talk about, he gives who were the previous 8 or 9 people. He lists them basically, almost 8 or 9 people. He lists them. He quotes what their views were, and then he makes his concluding remark on what his observation and what his expert opinion is. Okay. You have poetics. So we have covered spiritual text, dharma. We have covered the economics or the political science. We are now looking at poetics. You have Dvanyaloka, which is an excellent treatise by Anandavardhana, who is a Kashmirian poetic critic, who discusses criticism on his subject matter and counters them. So he actually allows that criticism to be put forward, and then he counters it. He displays the openness to allow criticism and then makes logical counter arguments. He presents a novel concept in poetics which is renowned and studied in various parts of the world for its original contribution. We can talk about Dvanyaloka at another time, but that's a different topic. Same goes with Rasagangadhara. Panditaraj Jagannatha. He liberally criticizes his predecessors in an objective way. He doesn't mince his words at all. He thus displays that such exchange of opinions and criticism were expected in the process of ongoing pursuit of truth and development. You have Natya Shastra, dramaturgy, where Bharatamuni also quotes several references in compiling possibly one of the most outstanding and path-breaking works on dramaturgy in the world. Then in Niruktam, grammar, Yashkacharya provides a methodological approach. And then you have Ashtadhyayi also, where Panini gives an astonishingly similar account of an algorithmic approach, where all the rules, if the rules are not checked at some point, they go to infinity. But he puts in a locking system towards the end, and the locking system essentially puts a stop to the rules. It hits a dead end. If you don't do that, then it just, it becomes extremely difficult for anybody to comprehend thereafter. So how did he arrive at it? Well, there was a method. There must have been a method of algorithm. How do you build algorithms? Then you have the chandas, the way chandas is constructed, the shlokas. In fact, I've observed that there is a method to how Bhagavad Gita was written. By the time the 11th chapter arrives, it hits a crescendo. The way when you recite those shlokas, you actually go into that state of ecstasy and devotion. And soon after that, the next adhyaya is Bhakti Yoga. How did they actually kind of structure that? How did he bring the sloka recitation to that crescendo by the 11th chapter? There must be a method there. Then you have mathematical structure to the meters, the chandas, and the permutations. For example, the Shalini meter here. So the rule for Shalini meter is Shalinyuktam tau tagav gobdhilokaihi. So I won't go beyond because we have already run out of time. So there is an example here of how there's a method to how everything is constructed. You have a method, for instance, for the Sanskrit alphabets, the aksharas. Those which come from the kavarga comes from the gutturals or the kantavyaha. Then you have the chavarga, which comes from the next place as we progress forwards towards the lips. Then you have the tavarga, which are the palatals. And then you have the tavarga, which are the dentals. And then you have the pavarga, which is the labials. Where did that method come from? Now you can see that the range of subjects that we are speaking about, they all had a method to how everything was compiled. Similarly, Charvakas were not there for people who just made things out of the blue or in protest. They arrived at their opinion based on the understanding that we will only value Pratyaksha Pramana, that is our method. We will disregard everything else. There was a method to it. Jainas actually believed in Anumana and Pratyaksha. They would disregard Shabda. Same with Bauddha. And the Astikas would actually value the rest. Everything, all those four. It goes like that. And we looked at debating culture, right? And we had the example of Adi Shankara and Vandana Mishra and how the judge and the rules were based and how the civilized approach to the debate. Okay, in the interest of time, I won't show this video here, but the last comment I have is that there is a world of difference between fact and truth, as fact can obscure truth, is what Maya Angelou has said. I'll stop here, and that's my end of my presentation. And if people have any comments, questions, please feel free to ask me or be honest with what you felt about today's subject, the delivery and the relevance, or whether it was easy to understand, was it difficult to understand, or what is yeah. So I'll be very happy to hear that, because I can make changes, I can improve as I go along.
Hi, sir. This is Vamshi here.
Yeah, hi Vamshi.
Yeah, please.
Hope you're doing well. It's been a long time.
No, sir. Actually, it became a little bit worse, but still, I wanted to. What is that now? I feel a gap that I should get involved. That's why I'm.
Yeah, that's good. Nice to be here. Yeah, go ahead.
But one thing is that is because you know me for a long time, I am hearing. But one of the biggest problem that I see is that is now even in YouTube or so many Zoom calls, training sessions are going on in educating the people. Hey, this is good. This is what good it is about our culture. This is good and all that fun.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of a marketing material that is happening.
Yeah.
But the actual training sessions that people also can get empowered and use in their daily lives, right?
Yeah.
Which can improve their lives also. If those kind of training sessions are there in different aspects, right? For suppose learning Bhagavad Gita that you are conducting is one kind of aspect, right? And another one is that is if you take right now the scientific approach of debating, right? If you teach that to people, then it can be helpful in their daily lives also, the debating one, right? So those things also should be honed and training sessions should be there. That's what I feel.
Absolutely. Jnanam
Srinivas
Vijnanam.
Sastry garu.
Just a minute, please. Jnanam
Sorry.
Vijnanam. So Jnanam is, let us say today's session is nothing but Jnanam. Vijnanam is the application. So as you know, Hindu Mitra Siddhanta has been always that we have to apply what we know. So surely I think your honest, valuable suggestion has to be implemented. We'll need to find a way to do so. We will do that. Yeah, Sujata garu చెప్పండి.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Sujata garu.
సారీ అండి, ఇందాక డిస్కనెక్ట్ అయింది, ఎవరు లేదనుకుని నేను స్టార్ట్ అయ్యాను. నేను చాలా బాగుందండి. యాక్చువల్లీ దిస్ ఇస్ అ రియల్లీ వెరీ గుడ్ రీసెర్చ్ థింగ్.
Yeah, speak in
Because
English.
why? Because you are why? Because you are getting you are connecting the dots from different Sanatanas, where now it has been undergrounded. We were not knowing all those things. We just, everyone says that one. Ours is we have almost lost our heritage. Why we are using why are doing all the practices?
Yeah.
So you are scientifically re-establishing what we have forgotten, the things that is really connected me. It's not just praying the God. Sanatana is just praying the God is not the only one thing. It's like a society, overall society development.
Absolutely. You're very right. Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear what you said. I hope we can all kind of realize that's why actually I have another topic which I called as social responsibility of social responsibility through Sanatana Dharma. So yeah, absolutely. I take your point. Thank you. Okay, who else has anything to say?
Well, I would like to put a small view of my own.
Yeah.
Like nowadays in this modern world, with